Welcome to a closer look at storytelling. Make me care. We recognize intuitively the truth that stories are powerful because they transport us into other people's worlds. We saw the study by Paul Zak that showed us that people's brains actually changed and there was a change in people's behavior after listening to a moving story. Paul Zak goes on to suggest that perhaps there is a universal story structure. We can't say for sure, but we do know that oral storytelling, which is what we've been looking at in this video series, spans back generations and centuries. It was one of the earliest forms of storytelling. But even if the story that we tell is the same, each culture will tell it differently because each has its own genres and cultural rules. Just a small sampling of storytelling modes in different cultures shows us the hula, which is a dance to Hawaiian language chants and songs and traditional stories, often telling cultural history. There's shadow puppetry in China and Southeast Asia, often accompanied with singing or musical instruments. There are the griot, who are the story keepers of West African culture, and they often play instruments when they tell their stories. There is songs such as calypso, which is a popular form of storytelling in the Caribbean. But in each of these cultures, whatever the storytelling mode, the purpose of the storyteller is to create the connection between the storyteller and listener, to bridge the heart and mind, and in the words of the listener, to make me care. And of course, throughout the planet, we know that when we tell a story, we're speaking to the human spirit, the rational soul. As we recall the words of Abdu'l-Baha, the mind is the power of the human spirit. The spirit is as the lamp, and the mind as the light that shines from it. When we tell a story, this is the light we are connecting with. Now, the various storytelling modes that we were talking about a minute ago remind us that there are various ways to present story. There's music and dance and drama, puppetry, visual arts, storytelling with others. These are all things that can provide inspiration, we might want to experiment with. Storytelling with others is a simple thing to experiment with. It helps to lighten the burden from one person telling the entire story. You can tell a story with a team or a small group of people. That might be something you present to a whole room at a Holy Day presentation, or it could be part of a classroom exercise or a study group. So it's a nice supportive approach to practice storytelling. We know that a good story can change us. We can feel uplifted, motivated, connected to others around us. In our contemporary society, there's been a revived interest in storytelling and oral storytelling since the 1970s. So in addition to a number of storytelling festivals that have sprung up across the nation and in other countries, people have been using storytelling and the power of storytelling. They've been harnessing it to serve higher purposes. So storytelling can contribute to cultural exchange and cross-cultural empathy. So when we tell stories that are rooted in different cultures, we can appreciate both the things that are unique about those stories and the universal elements. Storytelling can be part of community conversation, particularly around difficult subjects. It can be part of conflict resolution and peace building, both within a community and between communities. And I'd like to highlight one relatively unusual use of storytelling, and that is with StoryCorps. You can find StoryCorps online at storycorps.org. The mission of StoryCorps is to record, preserve, and share the stories of Americans from all backgrounds and beliefs. It was founded in 2003 by Dave Isay, a radio producer. And it goes back to this conversational storytelling mode that we were talking about earlier in the video series. The approach is this: one person interviews another. It could be family members, friends, colleagues, anyone who has a bond with someone else that they want to interview. The conversations are recorded either in one of the StoryCorps booths, or in recent times, StoryCorps developed an app that you can download and interview someone at home. Copies of the interviews are kept at the Library of Congress, and StoryCorps selects some stories to air on the radio. So if you tune into National Public Radio, or as I say, you can go online to storycorps.org and listen there. StoryCorps estimates that since 2003, 250,000 people have been touched by StoryCorps. Occasionally, StoryCorps will select an interview and create an animation of that. This is one, Eyes on the Stars, that we've included here on activity page. It's about Ronald McNair, an American physicist, astronaut, and a Baha'i who is remembered by his brother. It's a short video, and I suggest when you watch it, look for the universal story elements of rising action, climax, a decisive turning point, and falling action. But one of the reasons I wanted to highlight StoryCorps is because recently they had some surveys conducted of their listeners to see if they could measure what the impact has been of people listening to these interviews on the radio or listening to them online. So from 91 to 96% of people reported an increased understanding of people who were different from themselves, whether they were Latinos, immigrants, African Americans, people with a disability or serious illness. 81% of listeners were reminded of their shared humanity, and 70% plus became interested in thinking about how society could be improved and they felt more positive about society. So here is a different measure of the impact and the transformational effect that this very simple form of storytelling can have on people's attitudes and ultimately their behavior. It's a truth that was known long ago. At the beginning of the Indian epic, Mahabharata, the central figure says, "If you listen carefully, at the end, you'll be someone else." In truth, isn't that the outcome that we as Baha'i storytellers would like? Abdu'l-Baha tells us that people must be set completely free from their old patterns of thought, that all their attention may be focused upon these new principles, for these are the very light of this time and the very spirit of this age. When we tell stories as Baha'i storytellers, we are contributing to this process of transformation. And what is the greater goal of transformation? Baha'u'llah says, "He who is your Lord, the All-Merciful, cherisheth in his heart the desire of beholding the entire human race as one soul and one body." Baha'u'llah further summons us with these words, "The things he hath reserved for himself are the cities of men's hearts. Open, O people, the city of the human heart with the key of your utterance." Ultimately, as Baha'i storytellers, this is our sacred work.